podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
No brakes, no brakes, no fear, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome to this week's episode of No Brakes, No Fear, reviewing all the action from the past 7 days and looking ahead to what's coming up around Britain in the world of Speedway. Our special guest this week is the team manager of the Peterborough Panthers, Rob Lyon, reflecting on a tough start to the season.
We put up a bit of a fight, but our biggest issue is, as we all know, is we lack a number one.
A lot more from Rob Lyon in part 2 of this week's No Brakes, No Fear. We'll hear a little bit from him in part 1 as well, because we're reviewing some of the recent Premiership action. And one of those fixtures, of course, involved the Bellevue Aces, who ran riot over the Peterborough Panthers on Monday night, as Mark Lemon's side made it 4 wins on the bounce and 3 on the road.
They found their groove tonight, definitely, but real confidence in the group.
We've also got interviews with Richie Hawkins of the Ipswich Witches and Daniel Hume and Keenan Rue likewise. And in the final part of the podcast later on, we'll put the spotlight on the Cab Direct Championship. Lots going on there. A big week for the Scunthorpe Scorpions. We'll hear from Rob Godfrey. We'll also hear from Ryan Douglas, and Nick Morris of the Birmingham Brummies speaks to us too, as does Connor Coles and Rory Schlein of the Berwick Bandits. All set to have big weeks in their own way in British Speedway. All on the way on No Brakes, No Fear.
No brakes, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
And we start at the National Speedway Stadium, where Bellevue moved 4 points clear at the top of the Premiership with a convincing 56-34 win over Peterborough. And it was a maximum for Dan Bewley.
Niels Christian Everson hitting back. Bewley retakes the lead here in heat number 15. It's going to be close down to the finish line. But what a ride from Dan Bewley.
Bingo bango.
Bingo bango Bewley, the phrase was born on Monday night, and it seems to be catching on. Dan Bewley then scoring a 15-point maximum. The home side provided all but one race winner, with Charles Wright on 12+1, Brady Kurtz on 10, only missing out on maximums of their own in their final rides. For Peterborough reserve, Ben Cook with 8+1 and guest Chris Harris combined for a heat 12-5-1 for the Panthers, but still to get off the mark in the league table after 4 matches so far. Well, let's hear from that maximum man then. Dan Bewley speaking to Jason Harold on BSN.
15 points tonight. You had to work for it though in that last heat, Dan.
Yeah, that's it. I actually just tried something different for the start with the bike. We changed something and felt like it didn't move, so that didn't quite work out, but luckily we salvaged it, and yeah, it was pretty cool battling with Niels.
Yeah, you really, I was going to say made hard work of it, but it was a fine sight. We did have a message from somebody we just flashed up saying no finer sight than to see Bewley going around the boards.
Yeah, that's it. It's such a cool track when you got some speed, and even at the Peter Craven meeting, things weren't quite right, so it's cool to have everything working now, and just onwards and upwards from here.
Well, it bodes well you going into the Grand Prix weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it for sure, but still got a few meetings before then, so... But no, you know, it's been awesome the last 2 weeks. I feel real good on the bike, and just for Bellevue as a team too, we've been smashing it. So
it was a solid team performance tonight, though, wasn't it? 1-7.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone's going good, and then you know, just a couple of riders struggling a little bit, but they're going to get there for sure. So you know, it's all good, but you know, it's a long season.
Well, our special guest in this episode is the Peterborough team manager Rob Lyon. We'll hear from him in a moment. First of all, his opposite number, Mark Lemon, commenting after another big win for the Aces.
Yeah, I mean, we've been on a bit of a roll since the poor start of the season, and you know, these guys are pretty confident, and obviously, you know, we haven't had much time around our home track. Obviously, with the inclement weather we had early on in the season, you know, a few rain-offs, they sort of slowed that sort of, you know, time down, I guess. But, you know, they found their groove tonight, definitely, but real confidence in the group.
Have you said anything in particular to the team to turn things around that you can tell us?
Not tonight, I haven't, but after the Wolverhampton match, maybe yes. But, no, I think sometimes, you know, maybe we had a little bit of... you know, champagne hangover from the championship last year. It was 29 years since the Aces got to celebrate victory, but we just didn't probably hit the ground running as we'd like. There's no doubt about it. Dan Bewley's start to the season wasn't fantastic, but we resolved those issues, and you can see now that he's on fine form.
So there's Mark Lemon speaking with Jason Harold on BSN after that victory on Monday night. 56-34 the final score, and of course means Bellevue take the aggregate bonus point as well. Rob Lyon, the Peterborough Panthers team manager, is with us, and we're going to have a more in-depth chat with Rob in the second part of this episode. So we're going to talk all about Peterborough then, and all the other stuff to do with the future and Nicki Pedersen and everything else, and the search for a number one. But Rob, just your thoughts on that performance last night. Obviously, people look at the result, but there were some positives. Peterborough were competitive out of the gate. Ben Cook had a decent night. So do you take anything from that with a positive mindset?
In terms of positives, it's very difficult to take any what I'd call major positives, because you're quite right. Ben Cook rode very well. First time he's been there. Jordan Jenkins did his job, solid performance, and one or two of the other boys had some highlights, but we put up a bit of a fight. But our biggest issue is, as we all know, is we lack a number one. So that's obviously a major issue. We had one last night in Bomber who did a great job for us, but the team is low on confidence, and it needs addressing ASAP. Because we can't continue in that vein. Ben Cook, without doubt, is going to be probably have a similar season, I would guess, to from our point of view, to what Benjamin Basso had last year. Started off at reserve, made his way up into the team towards the last third of the season, and had a great season. I can see Ben Cook doing the same thing. But for the here and now, obviously, Peterborough needs some surgery. It's fair to say, and we need to be doing something very quickly, because season will slip away if we're not careful.
More from Rob Lyon in the second part of this podcast as we turn the spotlight on all things Peterborough, and having a good chat with Rob Lyon there. Just to another fixture that took place on Monday night, Sheffield, they charged into the Knockout Cup semi-finals, a massive 56-34 away win of their own at Kings Lynn to complete a 48-point aggregate victory. The Tigers maintaining their superb recent record on the trips to the Adrian Flux Arena. Number one, Jack Holder scoring 14+1 paid maximum. Richard Lawson, 11+1, was also unbeaten and made a late guest appearance against his former club, of course, because he was freed up with the cancellation of that match between Wolves and Leicester. They now await the conclusion of Bellevue versus Wolverhampton, the tie there before discovering their opponents in the last four. The Stars are left to lick their wounds, with Christoph Kashmazak top scoring with 9+1. Well, sticking with Sheffield, they made the trip last week to Ipswich, and it was the Witches who edged out Sheffield 47-43 in a classic contest at Vauxhall. Jason Doyle and Emil Sayfutinov combining for a 5-1 in Heat 15. Tigers guest Scott Nicholls rolled back the years with a stunning performance, defeating the Witches top two in Heat 13, which at that stage kept the visitors 2 points ahead, but the home side levelled in the penultimate race as key reserve Daniel Hume headed up a 4-2, and although Nicholls hit the front in the last race, which would have set up a superheat, Doyle charged through at the start of lap 3. Nicholls fell as Sayfutinov also came through. Doyle finishing with 13+1, Sayfutinov 11+2, led the scoring for the Witches. Scott Nicholls and reserve Louis Kerr also in double figures for the Tigers. So we'll hear from a few of those involved right now. We've got Daniel Hume and Kenyan Rue in a moment, but first of all, a chat with the Ipswich team manager, Richie Hawkins, speaking to Mike Boswell.
Yeah, delighted to get the win, obviously against a very strong team. At the stage of the season we're in, any victories, a victory against these strong teams like Sheffield, Bellevue, etc. are brilliant. Missing Eric makes it obviously so much harder. So, I'd have took a 4-point win at the start of the night, if I'm honest. We need to just win meetings and keep ourselves in the playoff race, so that when the boys get a bit more experience, we can hopefully step at a level come the summer.
And obviously everyone talks about Jason and Emil, obviously, and doing so many great things. Daniel Hume was possibly the match winner tonight with 2 heat wins and a terrific performance.
Yeah, Daniel, I think, has he's gone up a level these last 2 meetings this week. I think that's probably to just some time on the bike for him. He's come back from injury sort of at the end of last year, and I know every time he didn't get that much practice in as he would have liked before the season started, due to no fault of his own, just to the weather. But his determination is so good. Like, he don't care who he's racing against, and I think you've seen that when he's beaten Max Frigg and Dan Bewley the last 2 meetings before tonight. So that's such a massive bonus to have him a reserve where you actually, if he gets it right, he can beat anyone. He still makes mistakes, and we have, like, things go wrong, like you will do at his level at the moment. But yeah, to have that he kind of, I spoke to him before Leicester and said, give him a little talk on that he is the senior reserve now, he's not the junior, so it's a new role for him, not one he's ever took, I don't think, certainly not in this league, and he's the senior guy now, and he's got to step up, and he's got to take that role on, and he certainly has done. And
finally, a little team talk at the end there. What was that all about?
Yeah, just every now and again we have a little chat for the meeting, but I just want to say well done. I was so pleased with their determination. Well done for getting their first defeat to Sheffield. Wish them a good week. We've got a week off now, so good week. And then I wanted to talk to them a little bit about Kingston, just emphasise that we have got Kingston area next week and how important that will be, because they know we can't lose to Kingston. We've already spoken about that even before the season started. And just a little bit about what to expect here, because the bank holiday meetings, I know from my experience of racing in them and when we've done them before, they don't happen as often as they used to, but just to expect what the track conditions are, because they're normally a little bit different, and we have been caught out in the past. And I'm sure it's Peterborough against Peterborough with a massive crowd here when I was riding, and we lost at home, and I don't want to feel like that again. So yeah, emphasise that.
Cool. And just looking down, we had Matt Marston actually in the pits. Is Matt part of the plans of Ipswich?
Yeah, well, Matt obviously lives locally. We know him well. He's good friends with Cam. So yeah, Matt come up number 8. He wanted some laps anyway, so obviously yeah, it made sense. He's to be number 8 tonight. Or it's RR. If you're not got a number 8, it can be risky. So yeah, Matt's someone, obviously, he's over here, he's local, and he's a young rider, so yeah, good to give him some laps and just a bit of experience to be around the boys.
And the Eric Rees situation must be pretty worrying for the club. Not obviously appreciate the health situation as well, but how long kind of can that go on in your kind of head, as it were, for us to be able to do that RR piece?
It's not sustainable long term to be RR for Eric, but was one of them things that it come on overnight, and it is improving slowly, and he'll be ready when he's ready. No prognosis from the doctors at the moment that it will be a long term thing, because they're kind of not, bar seeing that it is this virus, that there's no other details that it's anything more sinister or serious. So he's had amazing care in Germany. What they've checked him for is brilliant, and it's come up that it's all okay. But he was flying and he was happy and having a great time, and then suddenly wake up in the morning and you feel like you've been on a weekend bender. It's not nice, when you haven't had that fun. So yeah, he's struggling. He's had a little practice. Still don't feel right, so it's pointless asking him to ride when he's not right. But yeah, we are very hopeful. I was hopeful that he'll be back for the Kingston meeting.
And everyone always reflects on all of the team. Very few ever ask about Richie Hawkins as the team manager. How are you finding being team manager of this? And is this a newer experience? Are you learning from the guys that you got in the team as well?
This year, yeah, it's enjoyable. Been enjoyable being around them. It's enjoyable as it can be. It's become probably quite, it's a job at the end of the day. I take it very seriously. It's not a hobby to me, it's a proper job, and it's a full, we're full on during the season. But the boys are brilliant to work with. I think we've got 7 great lads in the team. Very enjoyable to be around, which genuinely is, you often get someone there that's a bit harder work, but no, this year's great. I think it's awesome. Obviously, Jason and Em will make my job a lot easier with them because you kind of can just leave them to it, and they're so professional and got everything figured out. So, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of for a speedway. It feels like So there's a lot of pressure on us, I think, at the moment to deliver results. Everyone's got high expectations, and we've worked very hard for a number of years now to bring a trophy back to a league title back to Ipswich, and that's what we want to do. So if we can do that, it will certainly be massive relief and pleasure if we can do it.
Well, there's the boss, Richie Hawkins. Let's hear from a couple of the riders. Kenyon Rue in a moment, and first, Daniel Hume.
Looking at how you were performing tonight, have you changed much in the bike? You seem to be flying.
No, I've just got the engine going now. I know what the bike likes around here. Track conditions were tough tonight, but yeah, it ended up working in our favour. Even though it was tight going into it's level going into heat 15. Doyley and Emil showed their class and got it done for us.
And sort of, looking through heats. First off, I have to ask a quick question. What was the fire on your bike?
I'm not going to name drop or anything, but one of the mechanics, left a bit of tissue on the bike and it just caught up in flames.
It was quite impressive, but you still got out at the start. Certainly, still managed to make up, obviously, after that rerun and try and put some pressure. And then, looking at as we went into your heat there for heat 14. Some tough opposition, but you just came out. I mean, was the bike hooking up or what?
Well, I put a bit of pressure on myself. I knew I had to make the start and get across Louis, and I knew if I got across Louis, the others, they'll be battling out between them. So, I was just committed to get to the curb. I probably pulled a few shapes in the meantime, but it was a big heat, and we done it.
Well, the shapes looked perfectly fine, and you came out on top. So, well done. Yeah. Good night. Thanks, Daniel.
Nice one. Cheers, mate.
So, Keenan, great to see you here at Ipswich again. Keenan, good score. How are things getting on for you generally?
I'd say I'm being consistent with the points, but of course I want to be doing better. It's not where I want to be, but I'm feeling more and more comfortable every week, which is important for me to carry on better scores in the future. And as long as I'm comfortable, I feel like the speed will come.
And you're obviously next door to Doyley. You've Matt Marston here as well. It seems to be a complete kind of Australian section of the pits. Is that helping you in any way?
Yeah, of course it's good. I think it doesn't matter where we are in the pits as a team. I think everyone gets along great here, to be honest. But of course it's good to be next to Doyley. A bit of two Aussies in the corner, but it's good. Good team performance tonight, which is what we wanted and what we needed. And good night.
And sort of obviously your season's just started. How's Poland working out for you at the moment?
Slow start, to be honest. I've had one rain off last weekend, but it's all going to catch up soon. I've got a meeting Sunday in Gdansk, which hopefully goes well, and then got a week off next week from England.
And then back here on Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, Kings Lynn, and then you're Kings Lynn the following week. Any kind of insight to Kings Lynn so far?
Not really, but we're here home first, which I know not well. I wouldn't say well, but I know the track here, so hopefully we can have a good one on the Monday and take it forward to the Thursday.
Well, also on the same night last Thursday, we had our first superheat of the season, and Leicester Lions boss Stuart Dixon says his side are paying a heavy price for mistakes in the early stages of their Premiership campaign. The Lions do have 3 league points on the board, but they're out of the Knockout Cup and suffered that superheat defeat to Bellevue at the Pidcock Motorcycles Arena at Beaumont Park last week. Here is the team manager, Stuart Dixon.
Stuart, I know it will feel like a defeat to yourself and probably the team and everyone else. It was a 45-all draw. You get a league point, but just frustrating because you were 6 up on the night.
Yeah, 6 points up with 2 races to go. You fancy yourselves. We knew if we get a heat advantage in heat 13 they would go 6 ahead and they would get a tactical, but you can't say to the guys don't sort of thing. The obviously plan was to try and get a 5-1. We should have gave us 8 points ahead and sort of thing. But again, I hate saying it, but you've got to credit the away team. If it had been me and my team and we managed to pull 6 points behind the last 2 races, you'd have been jumping for joy. Ultimately, it comes down to the towing costs. They won the towing costs and they got 1 and 3, which were much more advantageous than the 2 and 4 were tonight. Something we need to get sorted. That's not normally the case here, so we need to get that fixed certainly. But all in all, decent meeting. Track road a wee bit slicker than what I thought it would. We never get the moisture coming up the way we did on Monday night. that's maybe just looking for making excuses. But I think it was a good close contest, and as you say, we get a point, but just no. We wanted the other point as well.
There's not a great deal wrong there, is there? When you look at Max Frick had bike trouble at the start, Richard Lawson had that fall in his first ride. Add those points back in, if you like, then obviously you do edge the win. So you're not a million miles off.
Yeah, we seemed to get away with those sort of stuff last season, sort of thing. We're finding to our cost that you won't get away with that. You can't afford any sort of mistakes. We lost a 5-1 in Heat 1 straight away. And I know we got it back in Heat 2, but at the same time, it's you get punished for shall we say, for mistakes or any mishaps in this league. Something that we're finding. I think we knew anyway, but we have found. But at the same time, they rode well. They got the Heat advantage in Heats 14 and 15 to force it, sort of thing. Momentum was with them, shall we say, and they got the extra point that was up for grabs. So fair play to them.
Well, there's been no fixture for Wolves over this last week since the news came out about their future being in doubt. The petition set up following that shock news that lease at Monmore Green is not going to be extended at the end of this season has now received nearly 17,000 signatures. Speedway fans around the world have rallied in support of the famous club, who now face an uncertain future with huge local support already behind their campaign. If you head online to the British Speedway website, you can see the link that you need to sign if you'd like to join in that and support the Wolverhampton Wolves as well. Looking at the week ahead, Kings Lynn and Peterborough both race 2 away matches in this next week. The Stars at Leicester on Thursday and the Panthers visiting Sheffield. Bank Holiday Monday is upon us before we know it, and that schedule features a midday start for Bellevue, who are at home to Leicester. Ipswich then host Kings Lynn at 2:30pm and Wolverhampton take on Peterborough. That clash completes the day, and that will be at 8pm. at Monmore. So that's how the week ahead looks in the Premiership. And coming up in the next part of No Breaks, No Fear, we're turning the attention on the Peterborough Panthers and speaking to the team manager, Rob Lyon, about all things Peterborough in the next part of No Breaks, No Fear.
No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back to this week's episode of No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast. If you're looking for further podcast listening, I can point you in the direction of Kelvin Tatum's own podcast, which is called Tatum Talks, and that's available now on all podcast apps as well. And he's previewing the 2023 Speedway Grand Prix Series, which gets underway this weekend. So search that out on whichever podcast app you use, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever, Tatum Talks Speedway. And you can also find it on YouTube as well, as Kelvin looks ahead to the action around the corner. Right now, we're turning our attention to the Peterborough Panthers with team manager Rob Lyon, who I'm very pleased to say joins us for an extended chat now in this part of the podcast. And talk us through the Pedersen situation then, because there's no getting around it. Big press launch and big signing as well, you know, announcing a 3-time world champion, and that really changes the complexion of the team. He lines up in the first meeting, first heat, and everybody knows what happened there. But if you don't, he had a crash on the second bend or whatever, and then that was that. So talk us through probably your frustration there in losing Nicki, and then how has the search gone to find a replacement after Nicki announced that he wasn't coming back?
Well, it is your in Speedway terms, your worst nightmare. Your number one hits the first corner, lifts on the second bend effectively, and wipes himself out for the rest of the meeting. I think it was a case of and it's been documented. He said this himself. I think ultimately there was lots of rumours going around that it was his Polish club that had put a lot of pressure on him. I've no doubt he did discuss it with his Polish club, but ultimately, it was an unfortunate situation. If he hadn't have crashed, then we might not be having this conversation. The fact that he did and crashed quite heavily made him realise, I think, at 46 years old and coming back from a nasty one last year, made him realise that his body wasn't able to take those kind of knocks in quick succession. And I guess he probably lost confidence in thinking, well, am I taking on too much, et cetera, et cetera. Doesn't help the fact, obviously, that he's left us in the lurch, unfortunately. So, that's the bottom line with it, with Nicki. in terms of replacements, we've tried pretty much every rider in of that type of quality and more besides that we would like to come over. Ironically, it's a sort of wrong time of the year for those type of riders now because certainly GP riders are looking to get ready for GPs coming up this weekend and preparing, and are already settled in their contracts abroad, and not really England's not really on their radar. You give it 6 to 8 weeks, that may well change, but that might be too late for Peterborough. Other riders that ride in Division 1 in Poland, who aren't getting a ride in Sweden or don't want to ride in Sweden, are possible options. But they are, if I'm brutally honest, few and far between. But we are talking to riders still, and hopefully we can come up with something going forward. But time is of the essence. It's an urgent situation now.
So at this moment in time, then, there's no date that you could put in, pencil in where you might have a solution to this. Is there a point where you hope that you will have a permanent replacement for a number one?
No, not really. It is open-ended, Ian, but like I say, it has to be within a very short space of time, because ultimately, you can see we've already lost, what we've ridden now, 5 matches, 2 at home, 3 away. 2 away, probably, I can't remember now, two or 3. So it's 4 or 5 matches with no wins. We go to Sheffield on Thursday, be another tough one. Wolverhampton next Monday. And all of a sudden, we could be in a situation where, without being too negative about it, we could be in a situation where we're 6 matches in and no wins. And then you start to think, well, our season is already looking like an uphill struggle. So it's ever so difficult to put a positive slant on the whole situation, if I'm brutally honest. And that's sort of telling it as it is, really. So time frame wise, there's no time frame on it, but it needs to be. It's an urgent situation because of those reasons, really. And difficult as well because there's so few teams, I guess, in the Premiership. But if everybody's riding on the same night, there's only that one team left over for you to choose between. So it makes options very limited for guests as well, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. It does. And I think everybody thought with the 17s, the one team remaining, there would be some flexibility in terms of replacements for guests and RR and stuff of that nature. But as we found to our own experience, that is not easy. Riders are either committed elsewhere, or they don't want to do it, or for whatever reason, engines are being serviced, or there's a various amount of reasons, or they're abroad or whatever. So that's not straightforward. And as we all know, RR is okay on the odd occasion, but you can't run RR for a number one when the rest of the team is built around it. So yeah, it's tricky. It's very, very, very difficult. We managed to get Bomber a little bit of luck. Really fell our way because obviously Leicester were cancelled last night at Wolverhampton, and we booked Ryan Douglas on Thursday at Sheffield, which is a decent guess for that type of track. But it is a lot of work, constantly ringing around riders to try and book those guests for a block of matches going forward. But that's the only alternative until we find a decent replacement. So in the meantime, on the track, you've got a fairly busy schedule coming up, and it's funny how it's working out, really. You've got basically a block of 3 away fixtures, then 3 at home and 3 away again. So it's not like you're home away. So I don't know if that's frustrating. And obviously the punches come thick and fast in that league, with the likes of, obviously, Sheffield up next. You've got Wolverhampton, Kings Lynn. You've got Ipswich in the Knockout Cup soon as well. So it's all going to come thick and fast. Yeah, it is, and that's Speedway. That's the fixture list. That's what it's about. And we're getting into that sort of time of the season now where riders are getting dialed in much more. And things are getting busy. So it's what you expect to see. But yeah, I'd love to sort of sit here and say to you, look, the positives are this and this and this, but at the moment, there's not a great deal of positives to come out of it. But all the club can keep doing is continue to try and find a replacement, and hope one comes along and strengthens the team. And it may well be that we have to make more than one change, but we'll see.
What I was going to say, is that another option that maybe, unfortunately, riders through perhaps no fault of their own other than their average would have to move around to allow for a certain rider to come in to solve that problem at number one?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, ultimately you have to do what's right for the team. If riders are available that strengthen the team, but it's not ideally what you're looking for in terms of number ones, see how it goes. And if it means that we have to strengthen the team because of that elsewhere, then we have to look at it. I'm not saying we would do that, but you'd have to look at it. Excuse me. But until that situation is presented in front of you, it's open to conjecture as to what you would do, really. Okay, and next up, at the time of recording this, your fixture on Thursday is against Sheffield. Of course, you faced Bellevue last. So do you feel like you're facing the two biggest title contenders in the space of a week here? Possibly. I mean, I think Bellevue are probably not as strong as they were last year, and the league has got stronger, which is strange. But they've hit a rich vein of form in the last few matches after losing their first two. Sheffield, on paper, are always favourites at the start of the year and have, set out their stall already. So yeah, I guess certainly two of the league favourites. I'm sure other teams will be up there at some point as well. But yeah, Sheffield probably are the standout team as we speak. So yeah, tough run of matches, and it couldn't get much harder. And Bellevue away, Sheffield away, and then Wolverhampton away next Monday is tough on a good night, really, with a good team, with a full squad to 7. So to go there with a team low on confidence, it has to be said now, and with no permanent number one is tricky. It is tricky. But, you've got to go with the positive mindset that you can get a result. Otherwise, there's no point in going. Looking at the Premiership as a whole, of course, you've faced most of the sides now already. But which other side has caught your eye the most this season, or maybe surprised you the most? Well, I'd have to say Bellevue, really, because, like I said, I think on paper they're weaker than they were last year, and they are reliant on their top two. Obviously, are top end riders. They are reliant on Charles Wright, Tom Brennan, Norwich Bladorn kicking on and improving, which is not always guaranteed, as we all know. And that's what's happened so far. Certainly, Charles Wright has filled that third heat leader berth for them, and he's come back after his shoulder injury, a different rider. And at this moment in time, I think he is the difference in between them, making a serious bid for the title again, and being maybe playoffs, but not quite title contenders. Bellevue, I would say, are the surprise packet for me at this moment in time. Some people will say, well, that's a surprise in itself, because Bellevue are tipped to be one of the 4 playoff teams. But I hadn't got them down personally as someone that, as I said, the league is stronger this year, and I don't feel they are as strong on paper, but they are surprising me at the moment. You've also got Ipswich in the Knockout Cup. Is that an opportunity to draw a line under the league and a separate competition? Because even though you didn't have a number one, you still kept things fairly close, especially at home against Ipswich. So you feel you have an opportunity there to maybe get something. Well, yeah, I think we possibly have. It's like every team has top end riders this year, pretty much, bar the odd one here or there, and I think it's fair to say that each individual team is vulnerable in that anything. I hope obviously nothing does happen to them, but if anything did happen that riders were missing for whatever reason at the top end of each team, it makes a massive difference to their team. Ipswich are struggling a little bit without Eric Riss, for example. He's not their top end riders, but he's a engine room rider, and they are missing him, and it has an effect. If we have a full 1-7 against Ipswich home and away, then you have to be confident that you can pull off a result and get in the final. Because I think we proved in the first meeting at home, we lost by 4, I think it was. And we got 4 points for Nicky's rides. So if we'd had a number one, then, you'd expect that rider to get 7 or 8, and it turns it on its head a little bit. So, yeah, you go into it in a positive frame of mind that you can get a result. And like I said previously, if you don't go with that mindset, then you may as well stay at home, because what's the point in going to know you're going to get beaten everywhere? But I realize you have to be realistic, but you have to go with the right frame of mind in the first place.
Obviously, the future of the club is in doubt at this stage, with the announcement that was also released at the same time as the news about Nicki not coming back. With obviously that threat of development at the showground has been long ongoing, and this was sort of seen as an extra year, if you like, anyway. But what can you update us on with how things are looking for the future for the Peterborough Panthers in either the short or long term? Because as it stands, the end of this season, this will be the last year for the Peterborough Panthers, certainly in their current guise.
Yeah, it's not something, if I'm honest, I get too involved in terms of future planning and all the rest of it. I've tried to concentrate on team matters, but that I think it's well documented. There's land available on a site. Or potentially available. What that looks like and how that fits with the existing situation and what that'll look like in October, who knows? Peterborough's been in this situation for quite a number of years. There's been rumblings about the East of England arena being not available after a certain time, and that's gone on and on and on. And it certainly looks like that now. But one more year and that's it. But who knows? I really don't know what the developments are ongoing in the background in terms of future development, other than what I just mentioned. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It would be a real shame, because Peterborough's been going in the city for 52 years, long time, and it's any speedway track, Wolverhampton, Coventry, we can name loads of them, can't we, in the last 10 years that have been lost, and it's not good. So, if anything can be done to sort of keep the sport going in Peterborough, then, I'm sure it will be.
But it's good that, conversations are perhaps going on in the background. I know you're not party to those, but there is work going on in the background to try and work on a future.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure there is. And what that's going to look like, it's like the same old story with these things. You go down the road so far, and sometimes it works out, and you continue a bit further, and you get success at the end of the road. Oxford have proven that it can be done, which is that's been a great success story, and gives hope for other tracks to do the same. And I sincerely hope Wolverhampton can get sorted, and obviously Coventry as well, and others that may or may not want to come back into the sport. But from a Peterborough perspective, that's no different. There needs to be a presence in Peterborough. It's been, like I say, it's been involved in the city for 50 odd years. So to cut it off completely and finish it, would be a crying shame, really.
Looking at another aspect that you've got some experience of, and now with the benefit of being able to look back on your time as the Great Britain team manager, of course the Speedway World Cup is back later this year in the summer. But just wondered what your thoughts were on how the GB structure is now versus when you were there, because you did voice your concerns at the time that there needed to be more investment and more support around it. And obviously now, I think over the years, things have changed quite a lot, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and for the better. I got to say. I mean, when I was involved way back in 09-10, gosh, that's 13 years ago. Time flies.
It does, doesn't it?
A lot of the things that the 5-year plan that I'd sort of presented and wanted to put in place, a lot of those strategies and plans that we sort of wanted to look at are bearing fruition now, and they're in place now, and that is great that they're happening now. Frustrating they weren't supported and implemented previously, but better late than never. Yeah, it's a different world now in terms of Team GB, and obviously it's sort of a privately run thing with Rob Painter, and that wasn't the case previously. It was the BSPL running it, so it is different now. I think GB itself needs more matches. I think, just doing World Cups is great, but you need test matches. I think, there needs to be more meetings in Europe against Poland and Denmark and Sweden. I know the reasons why that doesn't happen. It comes down to logistics most of the time, and dates and arranging it and all the rest of it. But that's what really needs to happen. If we go going back to the previous era of Speedway in the 70s, 80s, and possibly 90s, when test matches were quite common, it's a shame that can't be reintroduced into the sport, globally, really, because with all federations getting involved in it, because really that's what it needs. But it's set up a lot more professionally now, and there's no reason with the squad they have that now we're back to what I'd call a proper World Cup, because in my eyes the Nations is a pairs event. It's not a World Cup. The 5-man team scenario is where it's at, and I think with the Team GB have at their disposal, they've got a good chance.
And especially with it being held at Wrocław as well, with the likes of Dan Bewley and Ty Woofenden, that being their home track. I know it's the home track for some riders from the other nations as well, but I think it certainly gives them almost a home track advantage, even though it's in a foreign country. Yeah, it does. That will help. Track knowledge is vital in these situations. Yeah, it will. I mean, 5-man teams, it's always tough. It will be a tough week in terms of racing. It's always produced great racing in the past, and great TV as well, to be fair. But yeah, I think with that track knowledge, they've got a good chance. If we can put your personal struggles to a side with Peterborough, but looking at the Premiership as a whole, with some of the changes that have been made, Phil coming in as the CEO, and obviously bigger riders coming back to the British League. So what's your assessment of the Premiership up to this point? I think the appointment of Phil Morris is a great leap forward in the right direction. Unfortunately, those type of positions, Phil will already be doing a lot of work in the background to try and improve standards and all sorts of areas of the sport in the Premiership specifically. But his ideas and standard will take a while to come through. But it is a step in the right direction. The Premiership, the sport as a whole, really needs more riders. That's the bottom line. The Premiership ideally needs 8 teams. 7 teams is a step in the right direction, but with the situation with Wolves and Peterborough, that is a negative, but it'd be nice to think that can get sorted. 8 teams is ideal, but the key element to push this thing forward and to help Phil Morris in his role, if you like, in improving the Premiership, to improve British Speedway, is attracting more riders to this country, whether that's riders from abroad or whether that's producing our own. We tried to sort of put something together with No Limits, myself, Rory Schlein and Ian Cinderson a few years ago, which worked to a point, but it needs more of them. It needs a volume of riders, and homegrown really is the way to go. But that in itself is it's not an overnight fix. It's a 5-year plan, really. But yeah, I think it would be nice to think that start of the season, as you quite rightly say, positive outlook, and it'd be nice to think at the start of next year that things are continuing to improve, and the sport's got a bright future. Time will tell, I guess. Well, obviously, good luck with the search for a number one, and hopefully you might manage to find that rider sooner than later for the better of the Peterborough Panthers, because it's a situation you couldn't necessarily foresee. Perhaps Nicki could, but we'll never know, I suppose, on that one. But frustrating situation you're in, but hopefully you can find a way out. Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And I'm sure if he'd thought about it, he probably wouldn't have taken it on. He was already committed to Danish team management and Poland and Denmark racing wise. So it was a little surprising that he decided to take England on again. But like I say,
these things happen. Nothing we can do about it. We have to try and get on with it, I suppose, and move on and make the best of it.
Rob Lyon, the team manager of the Peterborough Panthers, joining us on No Breaks, No Fear. And in the next part of No Breaks, No Fear, we turn our attention to the Championship, looking at back some big clashes last week, victories for the Berwick Bandits and the Poole Pirates.
No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
Attention turns to the Cab Direct Championship in this final part of No Breaks, No Fear. We will start at Wimborne Road and the Poole Pirates, who made the perfect start to their clash against the Plymouth Gladiators. In fact, Neil Middleditch admitted he wondered whether a maximum score would be on the cards. When his side ran riot in the early stages, the Pirates didn't drop a point in the opening 6 races. They were 39-8 up after Heat 8 before the Gladiators limited damage in the latter stages as the BSN Series match ended 59-30. It guarantees the Pirates move into the semi-final stages, the first team to fully book their place. Let's hear from the team bosses, Gary May of the Plymouth Gladiators first, and then Neil Middleditch speaking to BSN.
Well, we just weren't gating and Pulver, and that's the end of the story, really.
It is only your second meeting, though. I've said that a lot tonight, so I guess it's just a case of the guys getting used to each other, dialing their equipment in.
Yeah, that's all really. And like they say, we haven't had a lot of meetings and that, but Paul outgated and they were really good tonight, and that's where it was. One at the gate tonight.
Neil, you couldn't have hoped for a better meeting tonight, could you, with regards to the score?
No. If I'm honest, I didn't see that coming. Obviously Carl and Richie and Ben and Stark, they're formidable four. But like Gary said, we were making some starts and just didn't have an answer to us.
It was kind of one in the first 4 or 5 races, though, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's hard to come back from that, isn't it? I mean, the heads go down a little bit, and understandably, but we can race what they put in front of us.
It's putting the marker down again, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, again, a good team performance. If you look down our scores, everybody played a vital part in the role, and I think that's going to be a key to have strength in depth.
Yeah, those reserves you've got are something special.
Yeah, that's right. Adam and Carla, got loads of experience, and they're both racers, and you can't ask any more.
Well, the Poole Pirates then, they are certs to be in the semi-finals of the BSN Series, and the Scunthorpe Scorpions are hoping to join them. They're very close indeed. They've got to take on the Redcar Bears at the Echo Arena on Teesside on Friday, but this last week has seen Scunthorpe win home and away against the Birmingham Brummies. Speaking before the clash at Perry Bar, we caught up with Rob Godfrey, who of course is promoter of the Scunthorpe Scorpions and chair of British Speedway Promoters Limited as well, speaking to Ryan Guest.
Well, Rob, team building for Scunthorpe in 2023, looking at 3 riders who finished 2022 who came back over the winter. Ryan Douglas, Jake Allen and Simon Lambert gave you some solid foundations to build around.
Yeah, they did, and with a 40-point limit, they fit nicely into the plans of having a solid 1 to 7. So yeah, really pleased with the team we put together, but not with the phone call I got 2 weeks before the season when unfortunately Zane Kennedy had a mountain bike accident and unfortunately broke 2 vertebrae in his back. So that was a big blow, but we have to overcome that and just crack on.
Yeah, like you say, working on things behind the scenes there. One of the signings that certainly got supporters excited, the return of Michael Palmtoft, who's obviously had some good days at Scunny in the past.
Yeah, well, Michael's our asset. He's, brought him over, I don't know what year it was. Took him to Newport as his first match, I do remember that. He got 14 points. And, he's been at Scunthorpe, he's gone, he's come back, and we're happy to have him back on the average that he's come back on, with a 40-point limit, I've got to say. So he's given us 3 solid heat leaders is what we needed, and the rest of them can fill in and score points behind the heat leaders. So.
Yeah, talking of riders coming in on averages, you'd be looking at Connor Mountain coming on average under 5, and when you look at the Premiership Rising Star scheme last season behind Tom Brennan, he was certainly the next one in there.
Yeah, he was. Obviously, when I knew it was going to be a 40-point limit, Connor was my first signing, I do believe, because I wanted him the previous year. I knew Leicester were going to go up, so we sort of moved heaven and earth to get him, and on his 450 whatever average it is, he was absolute steel.
Yeah, you open your season on Good Friday, and a nice solid win in the end.
Yeah, I mean, we had some ups, they had some downs, we had some downs, they had some ups. It balanced itself out. It was a very, very, very entertaining meeting. with racing from Heat 1 to 15, as it normally is at Scunny. And we got a 10-point lead to take to Redcar for the bonus point. That's what we're hoping to do. We ride Redcar very well. There isn't many tracks with this team now that don't ride way well. We'll see today what happens, but we're coming with anticipation of a win.
Yeah, and like you say, here at Birmingham, obviously it's a new look side. They haven't had a chance to get a competitive laps under the belt yet as well, so we're hoping to catch them on the off.
Yeah, it is, but also, you know, some of ours have only had a few meetings, been lucky that a few of them are doubling up, but we're still as rusty as they are, really, so we shall see.
Well, we'll hear from the Scunthorpe number 1, Ryan Douglas, who was speaking during that meeting against Scunthorpe and Birmingham last week. First of all, let's hear from the Brummies' new number 1. Of course, had to find a new home after Leicester progressed up to the Premiership. Nick Morris also speaking with Ryan Guest.
Well, Nick, following Leicester's elevation to the Premiership, it meant you were on the lookout for a new Championship side in 2023, and Birmingham came calling. Was it an easy decision when they did?
Yeah, it was pretty easy. It was looking like I was going to be out of a job in this league, and not something I was overly worried about. I had Denmark, Poland and a Premiership, so wasn't too worried, and I wouldn't have gone to any club either. So Birmingham's quite close to me, and it's a club that I don't mind to ride for.
Yeah, based on what you said at the Meet the Riders night a couple of weeks ago as well, certainly the word of the reputation about the new management and the way they operated last year certainly got about and had a say on you saying yes as well.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything bad about them, and the work they put into to keep this club alive, and hasn't been easy. They've had a lot of mishaps, but they've kept going, and that showed me what they were about. So yeah, it made my mind up a little bit more, and now I'm happy to be here, and let's roll.
Like you say, you'd got a hectic enough schedule anyway, so fair play on that front for committing. But like you say, it's extra competitive bike time in England as well, and on that average of over 10 as well, one of the top riders in this league, and certainly a league you definitely believe in your own ability in as well.
Yeah, it makes things a bit harder having an average like that with building a team with strength throughout. But we've got not a bad team, and it's a long season. Things change, averages change, and riders hopefully don't get injured, but it happens. So it's a long season, and see how things pans out, and hopefully we're there at the end.
Yep, and I know you came here in 2019 and 2021 as an away rider and had a few little concerns at the track over the time as well, but you managed to have a skid on press day, and it's certainly come a long way back since then.
Yeah, I think it was one of the things they had to put right. There was a lot of trouble with crashes and not enough water and too much grip in places, and so it was something that had to get sorted if they wanted to keep running, and looks like it has. We'll see how things go.
If there's one rider that maybe needs singling out over the last week for his performances, it's maybe Ryan Douglas, because he's had some big performances for Scunthorpe, for Wolves, also some big performances for Bellevue as well when he's rode as a guest at Leicester, in fact instrumental in getting them that win in that super heat, and also big performance on the continent as well, riding for Rowitz in Poland. Here's Dougie chatting with Ryan Guest.
Well, Ryan Douglas back with Scunthorpe in 2023, and certainly enjoyed your championship racing last season.
Yeah, that's it. I was back to Scunthorpe obviously after a few years at Leicester, and started last year obviously really well, and managed to maintain that all year in that league, so it was a pretty of a no-brainer to go back to Scunthorpe again, and it's a nice home track for me.
Yeah. What do you make of the side that Rob and Dave have put together this year?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an improved side. We're pretty strong all the way through this season, even with the limit coming down that little bit. It kind of played into our hands, and just suspects Jake Allen didn't have the best year last year, but I think doubling up all year, and if he can have a good season, and obviously bringing Tofty and Connor and people like that in, it's definitely strengthened us up. So looking forward to getting the meetings going now and see where we're at.
Yeah, a bit of a blow losing Zane before a wheel was turned though.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously him at reserve, especially around Scunny, was going to be very strong, so it's going to be tough to replace him, especially around there, but it's just going to be a bit of a waiting game and see what comes up.
Seeing as we're here at Birmingham's Perry Bar Stadium as well, not too far from your Premiership home Wolverhampton as well, and I'm guessing the news was just as much of a shock to you on Monday morning with what's going to happen at the end of the season there?
Yeah, it was definitely a shock. I was devastated, really. It's not just a big loss for Wolverhampton, it's a big loss for British Speedway. It's the clubs are starting to fall, and it doesn't look good. But hopefully, everyone's got around it, and obviously the petition's up over 10,000 now, so I don't know if that'll help, but it definitely can't hurt. So hope everyone can get around that and sign it, and hopefully something can happen.
It's not just a club that you've settled into, though. It's the local area as well, which you've more or less made your home here as well.
Yeah, that's it. I'm living in Shifnal now, and I love it there, and I don't think I'll change even if Wolverhampton drops out of that league. It's definitely a home now, and I don't like the sound to even think about it. This will be the last year at Wolverhampton, but like I said, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Meanwhile, in the BSN series, what a weekend it was last weekend for the Berwick Bandits, who faced the Edinburgh Monarchs away and at home in the space of 24 hours. And the Berwick boss, Gary Flint, says a collective determination led to the weekend's impressive results against Edinburgh, which kept the Bandits in contention in the BSN series, with wins both at home and away at Armadale, and collecting the aggregate bonus point as well. It all comes down to a trip to Ashfield this coming weekend, as the Berwick Bandits take on the Glasgow Tigers to decide who will be the champions of that Scottish group and go through to the semi-finals. But also there's a good chance that the Berwick Bandits could put themselves in contention as best runner-up as well across the whole three groups to maybe get themselves into the semi-finals as well themselves. Here are a couple of the stars of the Berwick Bandits from that night at Armadale, as Connor Coles and Rory Schlein really put Edinburgh to the sword.
Best night at this level. I'm just happy I got such a good team to support me in a couple of races where obviously I wasn't quite quick enough, but the boys followed me home and I couldn't have done it without them. So all of us just pulled together tonight and gave it the whistle.
Yeah, that's what we like to hear. And, seeing that with the way that Rory shepherds you around, and Jai as well, that's really what team spirit is all about and what Team Speedway is. It was an absolute pleasure of a meeting to watch. It must have been a pretty good meeting for you to ride in as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just a bit knackered. Don't have much time to catch breath when you're that busy, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It just means I get to score more points.
Exactly, that's it. And unfortunately, Nathan off home with an injury. We wish him the best for there, but well done. It was an amazing night, and you must be thrilled.
Over the moon.
Rory, you refused to be despondent after the home defeat on Saturday night to Glasgow. You said the only way we can get a way out of this is to get a result, and you've done that.
Pretty much. Last week obviously wasn't nice and it was hard to swallow, but tonight was just a different story. You can see we wanted it a little bit more, making good starts, which that was the only thing that was missing from last week. So you swap that around, and the result might have been different last week, but that's in the past. And tonight was the best way to return.
You've swapped the beaches of Australia for the brutal cold of Armadale, but nights like this, the adrenaline pumping and a good away win must make it feel worthwhile.
Oh, winning away from home is always nice, but it's just good for the whole team. We were pretty despondent and pretty down after last week, and to come here, it's a tricky track, and they got some good track specialists. So to come here and really win, we didn't convincingly win, but we won, with a bit to spare. So, but obviously Connor here, he was our match winner. He stepped up when Nathan got hurt, and a high scoring reserve always makes a difference.
And obviously tomorrow night you go back to Sheffield Park. You're now right back in the hunt to get a second place, the best second place, and well, if you can get two more results, you can win at Glasgow as well. You can win the group. So
who's saying we can't?
I'm not saying a word, but obviously a result like this can galvanise the whole team.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. We're only going to feed off it. Straight back into it tomorrow night. We've learned from last week, obviously, what we need to do to improve, at home. So, just bring it on.
So there's Rory Schlein rounding off that chat there with BSN. The week ahead in the Championship looks like this. Potential group deciding fixtures in the BSN series. Glasgow and Berwick meeting in a winner-takes-all clash at Ashfield on Friday, whilst in the northern section, Redcar need to win against Birmingham at Perry Bar on Wednesday, and then take the battle back to Teesside on Friday, where Scunthorpe would then require the aggregate bonus point to progress. Elsewhere, Oxford and and Edinburgh meet over 2 legs in the Knockout Cup on Wednesday and Friday, whilst the opening fixture in the Cab Direct Championship takes place at Plymouth next Tuesday, May the 2nd, with the Gladiators hosting Scunthorpe. So that's how things look in the week ahead. And a quick look at the National Development League. Not been a massive amount of action in the NDL this last week. Mildenhall bid to continue their impressive start to the season when they race at home to Berwick on Sunday in what will be the Bullets' third away fixture prior to their first meeting at Shieldfield Park the following weekend. So that's how things look. Just run through all those fixtures again. Then Wednesday, it's Oxford versus Edinburgh, BSN Series Birmingham versus Redcar. Thursday, Leicester versus Kings Lynn and Sheffield versus Peterborough in the Premiership. On Friday, Championship Knockout Cup quarter-final second leg, Edinburgh versus Oxford, and BSN Series Glasgow versus Berwick, Redcar versus Scunthorpe. Crucial matches in the BSN Series. Saturday, Championship Knockout Cup quarter-final, Berwick hosting Redcar Bears at 7 o'clock at Shieldfield. And then on Sunday, National Development League, Mildenhall versus Berwick. Bank Holiday Monday, Bellevue versus Leicester at 12 noon. Ipswich versus Kings Lynn at 2:30pm at Foxhall. And Wolverhampton versus Peterborough at 8pm. And the other fixture, which will be next Tuesday, Cab Direct Championship action, the first one in the Championship League. And it's the Plymouth Gladiators versus the Scunthorpe Scorpions. 7 o'clock the start time at the Coliseum. That's your next week ahead in British Speedway. Thanks once again for joining us. Don't forget, check out the previous episodes if you haven't yet. Yes, we're talking about matches at that time, but we've got lots of guests that you can listen to as well. Not least, Premiership CEO Phil Morris in our first episode, but also chats with Dan Julks and Stuart Dixon among them as well. And we'll be back next Wednesday for the next episode of No Brakes, No Fear.
No Brakes, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Sports Social Podcast Network.